by someone that all the recreation inside the ENCPA or under the stewardship, were due driven and could be raised or charged to outside residents. And I believe that we had a meeting with Mr. Mullen because I was concerned about this, and we decided to change the language to be sure that there was county-owned recreation inside. Could you verify that and possibly elaborate on it?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So, first of all, anytime there's development occurring within an approved DSAP or even prior to the DSAP being approved, there will be essentially an agreement with the county and the developer about what level of parks and recreational amenities will need to be included as a part of the overall comp plan and land use regulations of the county. The subsequent decision is whether those parks, when we enter into a potential agreement, will be maintained by a property owners association in conjunction with the county or with the stewardship district. So just because there's a park doesn't mean it's necessarily owned by the stewardship district. What is sure and certain though is those regional park requirements, those community park requirements that are to be public will absolutely be just that. So people from outside the boundary of, in the first village, the first DSAP approved village, will have access to those public facilities. To the extent we make an election to donate other parks beyond those public parks to the stewardship district, again, because of the nature of stewardship districts, those must be publicly accessible. To the question of fees and things like that, again, it's very early in the process to know what those would be, but what we envision is not too dissimilar from what happens with county facilities today when they're used by kind of for-profit organizations. Not-for-profits, we expect to enjoy the same kind of access at minimal cost or no cost, depending on the type of not-for-profit organization. But again, those rules are long from being written. Would you like to add?
And I just wanted to point out, I think the specific language, Commissioner Edwards, that you were referencing, the original draft of the act had the district being able to provide parks and recreation facilities. In consultation with your staff, and I think in response to your concerns, we added the words public parks and public recreation facilities. Additionally, the district, its ability to exercise that power to provide public parks and public recreation facilities is subject to the requirement that we have an interlocal agreement with you. So even if we are to go and engage in public parks and facilities, how those are operated, that's going to be subject to an interlocal agreement, and that's mandated by the Act.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, let me add to that, because each commissioner had called and we insisted that be added to give that protection. In addition, for the public to know, and I think you all know this, you've got two separate items here. You've got the stewardship district. You've got the already approved East Nassau Community Planning Area. It was approved years ago after all those public hearings. Plus, in your comprehensive plan, the East Nassau Community Planning Area is addressed in there. They are required, no matter who owns it, to provide a certain amount of community and regional park areas. But this language does in the stewardship district, that y'all's individual insistence is further tightens that to do what Jonathan and Charles are talking about. So you will have control through an interlocal agreement on the terms of the parks, on the funding of those parks. You will have total control. And that's why that was added. But the requirement that has to be checked through your growth management department, or growth management, planning and economic development, did I get that right? Is also checked by them to make sure the required parks are there for each DSAP that's funded.
I have a question, I guess this is actually for Taco. For my benefit and for all of our benefits, can you tell us from a planning perspective if there was no stewardship district, what would this, or what could this potentially look like?
Yes, sir, it's a good question. And I think it's important, as Mr. Mullen just mentioned, that, you know, we bifurcate the conversation. We have the stewardship district, and then we have the planning aspect, which is your long-range master plan, was adopted as FL13 in your comprehensive plan. But one of the speakers mentioned Lehigh Acres. Lehigh Acres is a perfect example of why we need to do high-level planning like the ENCPA and DSEC plan. Lehigh Acres is in Lee County. It was a businessman out of Chicago, came down in the mid-1950s, took 60-some odd thousand acres, and just started blasting roads and throwing lots out, strip commercial along the roads, and it's urban sprawl at its worst. And this is the exact opposite of what the ENCPA is. You're creating village centers, you're concentrating the density, you're creating mixed-use communities, you're creating employment centers. And so what would happen if you didn't have this high-level planning is the development pattern that you see now in Yulee, where you would most likely see hunks sold off in 100, 200, 300 acre sections, come through for just straight zoning subdivisions, and so you would end up with just subdivision after subdivision after subdivision because the land was already entitled. It was entitled even if just at the land use category of agriculture. As you come through the door, less than 320 acre parcels, you have a density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. So you theoretically could have 24,000 acres of 1 acre subdivisions, one after the other, without the urban centers, without the job creation, without the non-residential square footage that the sector plan creates. And so from a planning standpoint, it is far superior than having a fractured ownership and a land development program that is not organized and is not concentrated on creating compact development patterns that allow for sustainability, not only in terms of the environment, but also in terms of cost to provide services. You know, higher density, lower cost per unit to provide those basic services. And so the alternative is not something that we would want. And it's very much akin to other areas in Florida that were just developed into subdivisions.
So this would ultimately implement standards of consistency throughout the district?
Correct, yes, sir.
If I could, just for a moment, and talk about, I think what you just described, to me, is probably not a great analogy, maybe not a great comparison, because we're not creating a municipality. But I think about where I live in the city of Fernandina Beach. You have everything you just said. I choose to live there. I choose to pay higher taxes because I want good recreational facilities. I want good roads. I want good fire and police. So everything that you just said, I made the choice to live there. And people who live in this community, they're going to make that personal choice to live there or not live there. So that's how I see it. I'm sure.
I think if we look at just A1A, if we could all go back and do a do-over, we would much prefer to, and I believe that property was originally owned by Rayonier, both sides of the highway. And if we could have gone back and put service roads down the sides of them and done a better job of planning at that time, we'd have a much better area we live in today. And I think that this proposal gives Nassau County an opportunity to go out. We're looking at, you know, people they think that we're going to move all this stuff in tomorrow into this area, but you know, this is a 30 to 50 year timeline, not tomorrow. And each one of us needs to look at, I know I moved here in 1973, and Chester Road was a dirt road, and I hunted on either side of it. Today there's subdivisions. There is no employment opportunity unless you happen to be mowing the grass for the county and picking up, because there's no jobs there. Everything is residential. And that could be stacked up upon us throughout this 27,000 acres as easily as we could plan jobs and residential, commercial properties and hospitals and other things in here as we go. And I think that this is an opportunity for Nassau County to look at what the future is. We can't stop people from moving here. We can't stop and say tomorrow no one can come across the line. There was a city commissioner at one point, and when I early moved here, that ran based on having a limit on the number of people that live in Fernandina, and somebody had to die or move before anybody else could move in there. And you know, it's sad to say. I mean, today we're packed in, but we're not packed in. If you go down Heron Isles to Heron Isles, Chester Road should have never been built then, because they went down a road to get concurrency and build a facility. And what they did is they left a lot of empty land between there with a terrible road. This will cure that. The roads will be there before they do the first home. Each one of those will be taken down in a DSAP. It's a smart way to grow, and we're going to grow. I mean, we cannot help but grow. There's thousands of acres of land in Nassau County. People are going to come here. We came here. You know, my grandparents bought property here in 1932 with a vision it would be Edwardsville where they lived. Now there's 5 of us living there. You know, I mean, you know, I know that's, you know, that's kind of a halfway done plan, but that's what, you know, I mean, that's what they did when they came from Ohio. So I mean, you can't take somebody's dream and say you can't do it, but if we can manage it and we can let it go over a number of years and we can make it right, that's what I foresee Nassau County. I would like to see the other one on Boggy Creek design the same principles around their property. I'd like to see them have to provide not just residential, but commercial, schools, churches, the ability to make a neighborhood where they have everything in place, and waterfront. So, you know, I hope everybody comes away with this tonight, that they understand it. You know, this has been going on. When I ran for election in 2011, this was there then. They were getting ready to vote on it. I was on the board, I think, that voted on it in 2012. And before that, I went to a zoning meeting because my property touched Rayonier. Everyone that's property touched this area got a letter to come to the zoning meeting. I showed up. It was in this room. There were 6 people showed up that night with concerns about the ENCPA. 6. My brother, his wife, myself, and John and Peggy Davis. That was the sum total. So, you know, it's been going on for years, and people say, well, nobody knows. Well, we're elected to help make these decisions. These are decisions. If you look at every house built in Nassau County, a county commissioner agreed that they could build it. Not a vote of the people. The people voted for us to make these decisions. And if we don't make the right decisions, they'll vote us out. And it's sad to say, many of the people who spoke tonight, you know, you didn't vote for one of us. You voted against us because you didn't want Lignotech, you didn't want Crawford Diamond, you don't want growth in Nassau County. Your proposals are based on you're scared, or you don't want to grow, or you don't want anybody here. And I'd say if you have a lot of money, go buy it all and do what you want to do with it. Thank you, Chairman.